Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjalishalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please guide us all so that we can understand the deep wisdom in your words and texts and can align our lives accordingly. Hare Krishna. So today morning we are discussing one of the most evocative sections from the Bhagavatam, which reflects a theme common in the Bhagavatam, that is death. So, when I was speaking on a verse from the Bhagavatam, I try to use a 3-point framework. I call it Chit. Chit means consciousness. So, we can look at the context of the verse. And we can look at the implication, what all is going on over there. What does it mean? What is happening? And then take away. How does it apply to all of us? What can we learn from it? So I'll use that same framework today. Now the context of the Bhagavatam here is that this is the drama after the drama. Drama after the drama, or you could put it actually another way. It is the trauma after the trauma. What do I mean by this? That the war has got over, and we could say the war is the real action. Like if there's a typical movie, then there's a climactic confrontation between the hero and the villain. And finally, after a great fight, the hero defeats and destroys the villain. And then we expect the hero to be victorious, and now that we are victorious, to celebrate and to have joy. And there is a happy ending. But here, after the war is over, the drama of the war is over, but then suddenly there's a new drama. Instead of a happy conclusion, here the king for whom the war was fought, that King Yudhishthira is saying, I cannot be the king. I can't. I just can't. He is burdened by guilt. So sometimes some people who make a lot of issues about small things. Like some people like somebody is a drama queen. So, they make a big issue out of small things. Now, is Yudhishthira Maharaj doing like that? Not at all. He is a virtuous king. But for him, this is an unexpected twist. He doesn't want to be the king. Now, if you look at it from his experiential perspective, there is a trauma. What has happened for him? That the war took a very, very heavy toll for Yudhishthira. Now, he always had second thoughts, should I fight or not fight? He went along with the fight because he realized that Duryodhana was never going to learn. When they tried to arrest Krishna, they had tried to dishonor Draupadi first, then they tried to dishonor Krishna. That's when the Pandavas decided, this far and no further. They had to draw a hard line over there. and they fought. But unfortunately, the war took a heavy toll. Now, what was the trauma of the war? There is a term called a Pyrrhic victory. Pyrrhic victory is where the victory costs more than what you gain from the victory. And the Pandavas felt like that. Why? Because all their sons killed. And the whole war was fought at one level to resolve a succession struggle. And we succeeded, but there was no successor left to succeed after them. And why did we fight it all? What did we fight it all for? And among all the sons that were killed, Yudhishthira especially felt guilty about the death of Abhimanyu. Because it was he who had requested Abhimanyu to go into the enemy formation. Drona had formed the Chakravyuh to kill, to at least arrest Yudhishthira. And Abhimanyu had said, you go in and break the Chakravyuh, we will follow and will destroy it from inside. But Abhimanyu went in and was trapped and he was killed. And then, what was the last blow for Abhimanyu was Karna's identity. But when his mother revealed that Karna was her firstborn son, Yudhishthira was shattered completely. Now, he had always thought of Karna as a mortal enemy. And he said, I celebrated my brother's death. I danced in joy when he was killed. He said that. And my brother, he had an opportunity to kill me. And yet, because he knew I was his brother, because he had promised my mother, he didn't kill me. So for a virtuous person to do a bad thing, even unknowingly is bad. But for a virtuous person to discover that a person who they thought was bad was actually good, and not only good, but better than them, that is devastating. That is just completely shattering for the very identity of who I am and who I am meant to be. Like there is a moral hierarchy where we are here and say somebody else is over here. So Yudhishthira was not proud, he was always humble, but still he thought that Karna was a bad person and Karna had chosen to be on the side of the Kauravas, and he was a virtuous person. But this was his conception. This is how the moral hierarchy was. But what he realized was that actually at least this is how he felt. I am down here and Karna is somewhere up here. And Yudhishthira, his revelation or what he felt was the reality was like this. And he felt, how can I possibly be the king? I just can't. And nobody could make him see sense at that time. Nobody could make him change his mind. And finally Krishna got him to come to Bhishma. Now, at one level, this seems to be the worst thing to do for him. Because if he's racked by guilt already, then to bring him in the presence of a person who has been killed because of what he thought is his lust for war, his bloodlust or property lust or whatever, to bring him in the presence of that person seems completely counterintuitive. And on top of that, Bhishma is not yet dead. He's lying in pain, and that pain Yudhishthira would naturally feel that it's because of me. So now Yudhishthira and Krishna understood Bhishma's heart, and Bhishma understood Yudhishthira's heart. So the first word that Bhishma speaks when he sees Yudhishthira is amazing. Every single verse in this conversation is just a gem of not just wisdom, but it's also a revelation of the character of Bhishma. See, normally if we go to a hospital where somebody is having a terminal cancer, and they are in great pain. Normally our first question would be, how are you? We would have concern for them. Oh, this is so sad, something like this happened. But, we'll try to encourage them. But first we'll think they are in distress. But the first words that Bhishma speaks is, Aho kashtam aho anyayam yad yuyam dharmanandanaha. He says, instead of saying, oh, let's see what a bad situation I am in, he says to Yudhishthira, how many adversities and atrocities did you have to face? And then he basically talks about the complexity of morality in the world. He says, he gives a list, you lost your son and your mother became a widow. Now Yudhishthira may think that, no, actually I am not suffering, you are suffering. So Bhishma notices that and immediately he shifts his focus from when he says you, I am not referring to you, I am referring to your mother. Now Bhishma is also trying to soften Yudhishthira's heart towards his mother. Because Yudhishthira feels extremely angry with Kunti because of the etiquette of respecting one's mother. He doesn't blast out at her. But this is one place where he does still curse her. Women will never be able to keep secrets, he says. It's more an expression of anger from his part. But he feels, how could you have not told me that the person I was fighting against, the person I was plotting to kill, the person whose death I celebrated, that person was my brother? How could you never tell that to me? He says, wasn't I a stakeholder in this? So, he's also trying to help Yudhishthira soften his heart towards Kunti. That she has suffered a lot. And in many ways, actually her suffering was more than the Pandavas' suffering. As a parent, we would be ready to do anything to prevent any suffering from coming on our children. And if we are ready to do anything to protect our children from suffering, and if we are in a position where we can do nothing to protect our children from suffering, that is most painful. And that was the plight of Kunti. And in all the political intrigues that were happening, her sons were being targeted, and there was practically nothing that she could do at that time. So Bhishma is highlighting to Yudhishthira that actually everybody is in pain, Yudhishthira, over here. That even if you think she made a mistake, even if you think you made a mistake, now life is messy. And in many ways, the Bhagavatam is spoken in the shadow of the Mahabharata. What do you mean the shadow of the Mahabharata? Shadow of the war that has happened. And in general, there can be many kinds of sufferings in life. But among the various kinds of sufferings, we could say there are different degrees. There is adversity. Aho kashtam, as he says. Then there is atrocity. So the adversity is more natural. So if our power supply goes off, that's adversity. Atrocity is more intentional, done by someone. So if our power supply goes off, that's adversity. If we come to know our neighbor cut off our power supply, that's atrocity. But for a responsible person, probably the greatest suffering is agony. Agony means not just bad things happen to us or bad things are done to us. It is bad things have to be done by us. Sometimes life leaves us with just no good option. One of my close friends is in HR, and he told me that the part of his job that he just does not like is firing people. And especially when the pandemic came, they had to release a lot of people. And he's like, just detest it. But it's like, if we don't let those people go, then the whole company will go under. And nobody will have a job. So what do? Sometimes life brings us into positions where there is no good choice. And that is what burdens a responsible person the most. So Krishna, Bhishma is telling Yudhishthira, he goes through various reasons. Why do you think this happened? He says that such suffering on you who is a virtuous person, Vipra Dharma Achyutashraya. Not only were you wise, but you also took guidance from the wise. You always try to follow Dharma. You always were sheltered in Krishna, and still such things happen to you. So he goes on to say that, Yudhishthira, whatever happens, it is ultimately within the plan of the Lord. Tasyanu rajan. So we can visualize the scene. Bhishma is on a bed of arrows. Now when we use the word bed of arrows, that's a euphemism which conveys the idea of something that is completely opposite to what we would think is a bed. On our bed, even if there is some small lump, we will move here and there to try to get that bump away. If there is a small bump or lump, if there is something sharp, we will say, I'll sleep somewhere else. But he's in a bed of arrows. So this is in the middle of the battlefield where all the drama and the trauma has happened. And now Yudhishthira is talking with Bhishma, is lying there. And Bhishma is speaking. And Bhishma says, everything is the plan of the Lord. And he tells him that, okay, now Yudhishthira's problem is he's feeling guilt right now. That I caused the death of everyone. Now, Bhishma does not go into the specifics of the ethics. Okay, was the decision to fight right? Was the decision to fight wrong? Because in many ways, right and wrong is very difficult to determine. And we all have certain frames of reference by which we decide what is right and what is wrong. So the implication over here is that how do you free a person from guilt who is racked by that right now, overwhelmed by that. So what he's telling, there is a divine plan. Tasya anuvito rajan, anatha pahi natha prabho. Tasya anuvito rajan. That everything is happening within the divine plan. And that divine is not somewhere far away. Asya, that is here only. He said, that is the verse which will come today. That Krishna whom you thought was your friend, was your relative, that Krishna is actually God. So he's telling, yes, the divine plan is operational. Sometimes you may say, does God care? Is God even in charge? His God not only cares, God cares so much that he's right here. So he says, the divine plan is going on in your life. It's going on in your life right now. And how does he persuade Yudhishthira? As I said, he does not go into an elaborate analysis of the ethics of war. Because everybody else has tried that approach. If you look at the discussion before this, Vyasadeva has tried it, Krishna himself has tried it, Arjuna and the Pandavas and Draupadi, everybody has tried it. So he talks about Dharma and Bhakti. So basically, you could say Dharma is moral virtue, is morality. Or you can say ethics. Morality and ethics are similar, but ethics is more like a system of morality. But either way, what he says is, that ethics and bhakti is of course devotion. So broadly speaking, the way the analysis is done over here is that if we consider dharma is the right thing to do, and bhakti is the right mood in which we do the thing. We do it for pleasing Krishna. So now sometimes there can be a dharma that can happen, and then somebody can be a bhakti. Now, abhakti is not so much a word, abhakta is a word, but abhakti is something which is done without emotion. So, if we consider these four quadrants in a clockwise sense, now, which is the best place to be situated in? Fourth quadrant. That we do things to please Krishna, out of love for Krishna, and we do the right thing. We are moral and we are devoted. In fact, this is what Krishna talks about in 12.12 to 19 in the Bhagavad Gita. He talks about 12.13 to 19. He talks about characteristics that attract a devotee to him. Endear yomat bhaktaha same priyaha. Such a devotee is dear to me, he says. It's interesting, in those qualities, Krishna does not say a devotee who chants 16 rounds every day, or a devotee who wakes up for Mangalarti, or a devotee who fasts Nirjala on Ekadashi, a devotee who visits Vrindavan. Krishna is not talking anything about devotional qualities. They are important. But there Krishna is focusing on behavioral qualities. That somebody who is compassionate and kind to others, somebody who does not agitate others, somebody who is calm, who is self-satisfied, who is basically qualities that anyone can appreciate. There's one time when Prabhupada was asked by a newspaper journalist, how can we know your followers? And Prabhupada said, they are perfect gentlemen, ladies. They are perfect gentlemen. So the idea is that this is the best quadrant to be in, where there is dharma and there is bhakti. However, sometimes life is so complex that sometimes one may not be able to decide what is dharma, or sometimes one may do something which one considers as dharma, but later on finds out it is adharma. But as long as the heart is in the right place, he says that eventually Krishna will take care. So now we could say there is dharma and there is bhakti, both are important. But dharma cannot be neglected for the sake of bhakti. So dharma means the morally or the materially right thing to do. So dharma has both a moral meaning to it as well as a functional meaning to it. I'll talk more today evening about the concept of dharma. But the point is that dharma is that when we function in the material world, there is a right way to function in the material world. If we are driving in the road, we have to follow the right side of the road. If we don't, we may think I am serving Krishna, I may be going the wrong side of the road, still we may be pulled over or we may meet with an accident. So dharma is the materially, the legally, the morally, the functionally right thing to do. Somebody may have bhakti, but if they don't have dharma, then say suppose somebody is cooking for a big festival and they don't know any cooking at all. Then they may cook with great devotion. Everything they are doing with respect to cooking, they are having a nice kirtan going on, they offer prayers to Krishna, they do everything right. But they just have no knowledge of cooking. So what will happen is, Krishna will be pleased by their cooking, and only Krishna will be pleased. At a material level, things won't work. So in the material world, for functioning, dharma and bhakti both are important. Somebody has bhakti, that's wonderful. For pleasing Krishna, that's wonderful. Like in the Ramayana, there is the story of the squirrel also bringing some dust for building the bridge. Lord Ram said to the great monkeys that what you are doing and what that squirrel is doing, I am pleased with both of you, because both of you are doing your best. So from the Lord's perspective, the Lord is bhavagrahi, the Lord looks at the heart. However, from the practical perspective, the squirrel did not help in building the bridge much. They were the giant monkeys who brought giant boulders, and that's how the bridge was built. So the point I'm making is, the material world is a harsh place. The material world does not care for our fine sentiments. The material world works based on some rigid realities. And if somebody does not have the right judgment, even if their heart is right, it doesn't work. So sometimes even good people can make bad choices. Good people, I mean people whose heart is in the right place. Whose heart is in the right place, they may also make some wrong decisions. So now, if you consider among these four quadrants, that we could say this is, if there is no dharma and there is no bhakti, that is the worst. That means that person is not doing anything materially right, nor are they doing devotionally right. That means, say, if we consider this would be complete tamas. Say there are parents, the parents have no spiritual conception themselves, they have no interest in raising their children spiritually, but the parents are not taking care of children materially also. Maybe the parents are high on drugs and they don't even know their child exists. So there is no material responsibility, there is no devotional attachment or connection. That we could say is the worst. Now, somebody might have dharma but no bhakti. Like say, we may say that there might be some parents who may not care at all about bhakti, but they care for the material well-being of their children. If their child is sick in a hospital, they may be ready to sell everything to save the child's life. They may be ready to move heaven and earth to take care of their child. So caring for dharma and not caring for bhakti, that is better than not caring for either. At least you are trying to do the right thing, even if our heart may not have the right attitude. In the sense that we are not really thinking of serving Krishna, bringing others closer to Krishna. Now, on the other hand, if there is bhakti but there is no dharma, that means materially one does not consider what is the right thing, one does not use good judgment, one does not make proper analysis of things, then there will be material consequences. Now, can Krishna intervene and protect from material consequences? Yes, of course he can. And sometimes Krishna does. But a devotee does not demand that. A devotee does not expect that. Say, suppose we have to catch a flight and we are having a program and there's some very spiritually curious person and we spend a lot of time talking with that person and we get late for the flight. We say, Krishna, please arrange for some problem with the technical details of the flight so that the flight gets delayed and I reach on time. Now, if it happens, wonderful. But we can't make that as a pattern and expect Krishna, I won't care for what is the material right thing to do, and Krishna, you take care of everything. Now, adharma can also refer to immorality. Now, when I am using the word adharma over here, I am using it both in a functional sense and in a moral sense. Later on, after this verse, Bhishma will make a remarkable statement. He says, Tathapekanta bhakteshu pashya bhupanukampitam yanme sumstajata sakshat Krishno darshanamagataha. So he says, Tathapya ekanta bhakteshu. And Prabhupada translates as, because I am a pure devotee. Because I am a pure devotee, just see, okay, Krishna has come to rescue me now. Pashya bhupa anukampitam. Oh, just see, bhupa, okay, the mercy that the Lord has bestowed upon me, that He has come to free me from this material, as Prabhupada used the word tabernacle, from the material entanglement. He has come at my last moment. Yanme syuns tejataha. When I am about to leave my body, Sakshat Krishno darshanamagata. Krishna has come to give darshan. So what is he saying? He's saying that even if I did something which is wrong, I fought against Krishna, I shot arrows at Krishna, and in spite of that, my heart was in the right place. My heart was in the right place, and just see how Krishna has rewarded me right now. So now we say, how Krishna has rewarded me? We could say, Krishna didn't reward you. You are lying on an arrow bed. You are in pain. You suffered. The only defeat in your life, you suffered. Like somebody has a spotless record in their entire life. Say some tennis players never lost a single match. And the final match they lose. So at the very least, it's a stain on their record. Now we could say Bhishma lost before that at Virat also, but it was more of it is not a war with lethal consequences. Arjuna did not want to kill Bhishma, Bhishma did not want to kill Arjuna. He just wanted to come to a detent at that time. This was a war with serious consequences. So practically, this was the only time he lost in a major battle with major consequences. And he's saying that how did Krishna protect? So the principle over here is twofold. That there is the spiritual and there is the material. Now the material will operate according to material principles and there will be material consequences. So if we are careless about material things, there will be material consequences. If somebody has diabetes and they are given, say, Tirupati Laddu, doctor has told them don't eat any sugar. They say, this is not sugar, this is Mahaprasad. And they take the entire Laddu. Well, at a spiritual level, there will be spiritual consequences. At a spiritual level, they may be purified by eating that Laddu. But at a material level, their sugar level will spike up. They may even have to be admitted in the hospital. Even if you take it with a very prayerful attitude, it doesn't make any difference. Because there are material principles over here. So what is he saying? That Dharma and Bhakti both have to go together. So at one level, just to understand this point, I'll conclude with this point and then go to the last part, takeaway. That at one level is only Bhakti, at another level is only Dharma. So Dharma at the level of Bhakti or Dharma at the cost of Bhakti or Bhakti at the cost of Dharma. Both of these are unsustainable. What we need is in between is both. So only Bhakti. So now Bhishma's decision to stick to the side of the Kauravas turned out to be wrong. So, but still his heart was in the right place. So when there is only Bhakti, we will have spiritual good, but not material good. If you see Srila Prabhupada, what did he say? One of the last instructions about how will Krishna consciousness spread? Prabhupada said it will be through organization and intelligence. Prabhupada didn't say it just by chanting Hare Krishna or worshipping the deities. Yes, all those are important. But we also need organization and intelligence because we are in the material world. There is only Dharma, there may be material good by that, but not spiritual good. So we need both. So in many ways, Bhishma is over here. Bhishma chose the wrong side and at a material level there are consequences. But Krishna did not overlook his bhakti. Krishna still rewarded him. And now, what is he saying to Yudhishthira? Is he saying you also come on this side? He said no. He's saying, going back to this quadrant. So basically if you look at these four quadrants, Bhishma's life was more or less on this side. Now he's telling Yudhishthira that even if Yudhishthira in war, he's telling him even if you are in this side, says now you have the opportunity to come here post-war. Why? He says that there is the whole kingdom that is devastated. And for restoring the kingdom, for taking care of all the widows, taking care of all the orphans, is you are the best person. That there are many people who are anath, people who are shelterless, and you have to be the shelter for them. And for war, Bhima could have been might have been a better commander, better king. But for peace, for restoration, Yudhishthira was the best person. So he's telling, don't let your past guilt about whatever you did stop you from doing the right thing now. He says, now it is not only your dharma as a king, but it is also what Krishna wants you to do. So just because in the past you might have been in the wrong place, does not mean you have to stay in the wrong place now. So he is not arguing with Yudhishthira whether in the past he was in the wrong place. Because that argument is not going to work for Yudhishthira. Then an argument can be made that even the war was a virtuous war and it was dharma and bhakti. But even granting that it was not dharma. He says, right now what is the dharma? He says, it is for you to take the responsibility of the king, to restore the kingdom to its glory, to bring peace and prosperity among the citizens, to set all of them on the path to spiritual growth. For all this, you are the right person. And this is the argument that Yudhishthira accepts. And then after that, Yudhishthira asks Bhishma many questions. And about how to rule. Raja Dharma, there's a discussion in the Shanti Parva and Anushasan Parva. Elaborate discussion. In fact, that discussion is actually bigger than the entire Mahabharata itself. It's a huge. So the thing is here, what has happened is Bhishma succeeds in consoling Yudhishthira. And so this is all this is the implication. And implicit in that is the takeaway for us. What is the takeaway? Two main things I will say that. As devotees, we try as much as possible to be in quadrant 4. As much as possible is our top priority or a top preference, we can say. That means we try to do the materially right thing also or the morally right thing also, not just the spiritually right thing. That for us, we want to serve Krishna, we want to serve Krishna in a way that is also materially, morally right. We need good intelligence. No, basically good intention is not the substitute for good intelligence. They are not the same thing. We all need good judgment in what we do. So if there is no good intelligence, there is good intention, that does not mean that we will be protected. Yeah, we will be protected eventually by Krishna, but we will face consequences at the material level. So once I was in the Chicago airport, I landed at the airport and then one devotee called me, and that devotee was going through some very difficult phase. His child had been diagnosed with cancer, and I was talking on phone trying to console him, and then I got off the airport. A wheelchair assistant took me along, and the devotee came to pick me up, and I said I'm talking on phone, and I hugged the devotee and then went along. When we got into the car, I asked the devotee, "Can I have my laptop?" He says, "What laptop?" So what had happened was I had the laptop bag with me, and when the devotee came, I got up, I put the laptop bag right in front of me. I put the laptop right next to that devotee. But there was a suitcase which I was carrying. So that devotee picked up the suitcase. But he did not, the suitcase was given by the wheelchair assistant to him. But I kept the laptop bag right in front of him. But I was busy talking on phone. I didn't intentionally point to him. This laptop is here. And what happened was, he forgot. We rushed back and the laptop bag had disappeared. And that day, normally I keep my passport always in my pocket. But somehow that day I had kept while talking with the devotee on phone, I had kept my passport right in the bag. And so now to be traveling in a foreign country without laptop is a big loss, but without a passport it's a disaster completely. So I was feeling angry with myself, I was feeling angry with that devotee, I was feeling angry with everyone. And I was thinking I was trying to serve this devotee, I was extending myself. I was talking with this devotee who was in great distress, trying to calm and console that devotee. And why did this have to happen to me? Now fortunately, I thought, I do have to cancel all my America tour because I cannot go from one city to another without a passport. You're thinking, should I go by car? But then you have to arranging for a car and driving from one city to another city. It's all very complicated. So, fortunately for me, so actually I was in Chicago, Radhanath Maharaj also in Chicago, so he came to know about my passport, then he called me what happened. He said that, whenever you travel, keep your passport in the bag around your waist. Don't let go of that bag ever. He says that, if you, whatever be the reason, I told Maharaj, Maharaj said, whatever the reason, he said, you should not do this. And fortunately, we have devotees in somewhat influential places, so and getting a new passport takes a long time, but some devotees, we found some contacts, we wrote to the Chicago embassy and he wrote to the people, and it was 3 days in Chicago. By the time I was supposed to leave, just a few hours before that, I got the new passport. So, by Krishna's mercy, the problem was solved, but the problem was still there. So, my point is that as devotees, we can't expect or insist that Krishna will protect us if our intentions may be right, but good intention is not a substitute for good judgment. We have to use proper intelligence also in making decisions. Otherwise, there will be consequences. So, best is to be in the quadrant 4, where we try to do the right thing and we try to use the right. We try to have a mood of service to Krishna, but also do the right thing. But if not, then the second point would be don't lose hope. It is not that because we make a wrong decision, Krishna is going to abandon us and reject us and doom us. No. Sometimes even the best of us may make errors in judgment. After all, we are finite beings. We are fallible beings. And no mistake should be considered fatal. That don't think that some mistake, because of this mistake, I am permanently ruined. So don't let, if we think my guilt is so great that I am permanently doomed, and because of having done something bad, we stop doing anything good right now, and that is only going to make things worse. So don't lose hope means that don't let past mistake discourage us so much, leads to so much discouragement that we end up making a present mistake. The present mistake may be present negligence. So don't let this happen. No matter how many mistakes we have made, still Krishna can bring some good out of it. This point about how Krishna can bring good out of our mistakes, I'll discuss more in today evening's class. But this is what Bhishma is assuring Yudhishthira, that Krishna still has a plan and you be a part of his plan now. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Today we discussed about the broad theme of how Bhishma guides Yudhishthira, and that was the context. But our theme was broadly decision making. How do we decide what is right and wrong? How do we move forward in our life based on the decision making? So I talked about 3 main points. I took the framework of Chit, context, implication and takeaway. So the context was that here Yudhishthira is in agony. I talked about adversity, atrocity and agony. Bad things happening to us is adversity, that's itself bad enough. Bad things being done to us, that's far worse, it's atrocity. And a bad thing that we need to do, we just have no option, we just have to do that bad thing, that itself is agony. And Yudhishthira is in this situation. He feels that I did something terrible when I fought a war, and because of that he is thinking that I will not fight. So the implication of this, as the Mahabharata describes, is that life is terribly complex and we need to do dharma in the sense of the morally or functionally right thing to do, and bhakti is our heart needs to be in the right place. We want to be serving Krishna. So now it's best to be in the 4th quadrant, but sometimes life can be so messy that even if our heart is in the right place, we may do something wrong. Now here there will be spiritual good will result, but at a material level some bad might result about this. Now in dharma is there but no bhakti, material good might result, but the spiritual good won't come, there is spiritual bad. Here it will be both, if there is no dharma and no bhakti, then what will happen is there is materially and spiritually both will be bad. Best means here it will be materially and spiritually both will be good. So we discussed how Bhishma himself lived most of his life in this quadrant, and yet he is assuring that When he's saying I'm a pure devotee, he's not bragging over there. But he's saying that Yudhishthira, even if you think that in the war you're in this decision, this quadrant, now what is the right thing for you to do? You need to fight. You need to actually take up the kingdom and restore the kingdom. That is what Krishna wants to do you to do. That's bhakti, and that is what the responsibly right thing to do is for you. And the takeaway for us is that that good intention is no substitute for good judgment. Good intention needs to be complemented with good intelligence. Both are required. Otherwise, there will be material consequences for us. So, best is that we try to stay in quadrant 4 as much as possible. But if we can't, then don't never lose hope. We should not become hopeless, that no mistake is fatal. That our past mistake should not make us so discouraged that leads us to a present mistake. That even through our past mistakes, Krishna's plan can work and Krishna can take us to a better place. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Gantraj, yeah, yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much for the class. It's really, really clear, and I like how organized the whole thing was. Quite nice having to be able to follow on the chart here, concepts that are going, and I like how the context and the page and the takeaway is really, really great. So Yudhishthira, he seems to have lost the idea that there's a divine plan in his life. That's part of the situation here, right? And so, and Bhishma Dev's messaging at the beginning is to help him realize that's not that the case is. He's part of a divine plan. And so, for Yudhishthira, as readers of the Mahabharata, we understand obviously that he's a pure devotee and Krishna is putting him through these situations. And so, as observers, we don't lose track of the fact that Yudhishthira is part of the divine plan. So I guess my question is are we? What is it? How do we experience this in our own lives? Do we can we also lose track like Yudhishthira about how part of our the things that we go through are part of Krishna's divine plan for us, or is it otherwise? Is it maybe we're not in the same position as Yudhishthira, and we're not really our sufferings aren't really part of the divine plan, because maybe we're residing in the wrong quadrant or something. Is that a clear question?
Yeah, thank you. So firstly, about Yudhishthira itself, I would like to clarify a little bit. See, broadly, the sacred texts can be approached at 4 different levels. One is the literal level. This is what happened. It's an entertaining story. Enjoy the story. So, at a kid's tale, popular retellings, movies, they are at that level. And the second is the ethical level. This is where we consider what is right, what is wrong. We deliberate on the ethics of the situation. Then the third is the allegorical level. Now, not everything is an allegory, but Prabhupada also sometimes says that never be discouraged if you are practicing bhakti, because you have handed over the reins of your chariot to Krishna and Krishna will take care. So, allegorical, the scripture itself is not an allegory, but some aspects of scripture can be understood at allegorical level. And then there is the devotional level. So, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita itself, Prabhupada sometimes says Arjuna's illusion is Krishna's arrangement so that the Bhagavad Gita can be spoken. So, Prabhupada is speaking at a devotional level. But then Prabhupada also says, say Arjuna is a thoughtful person. Arjuna is thinking about the consequences of his actions before deciding. And this thoughtfulness shows that Arjuna is ready to receive the Bhagavad Gita. But Prabhupada is talking at the ethical level. This is in the first chapter. And the second chapter, immediately Prabhupada seems to change mood. And he says, Arjuna is in tears. Tears are a sign of ignorance and attachment and the skin disease. And everybody is suffering from such ignorance, attachment and the skin disease. And Krishna is speaking in the Bhagavad Gita to remove such universal ignorance, attachment and skin disease. So is Arjuna thoughtful or is Arjuna ignorant? So that's why when we talk at the ethical level, our focus, especially when you're talking about sacred characters or very exalted characters, the focus is not on who is right or more importantly who is wrong. Our focus is more on what is right. It is, we are not in a position here to judge these characters and say that they are wrong. Yes, we can say at the level of Leela, everything is a plan of the Lord and everybody is like a puppet in the Lord's hands. But if we focus only on the devotional level, then there's nothing for us to learn. And in this situation, this kind of action is good, this kind of action is bad. So Prabhupada himself doesn't always comment on the devotional level. Although Prabhupada doesn't ensure that we don't forget the devotional level. That is all the Leela of the Lord. But at the same time, Prabhupada also says this character did like this is not good, this is good. So there are multiple levels at which we approach scripture. So that's the first point of the, that when we are saying Yudhishthira's actions or Bhishma's actions at the ethical level were questionable, that does not mean that at a devotional level also they are, whatever they are doing is a part of the Lord's plan. Both can be true at the same time. Now having said that, now is it that we are never a part of the Lord's plan? No, that doesn't happen. That we will always be a part of the Lord's plan. But we may be cooperating with the Lord's plan, or we may be not obstructing, we may be delaying the Lord's plan. So even if somebody is in quadrant 3 or quadrant 4, where they have nothing to do with the Lord, but it does not mean Krishna abandons anyone anytime. So we are certainly not at the level of Yudhishthira. We are not done that level of ethical deliberation also, based on which we think that, oh, I did something wrong and therefore I am doomed because of this. See, what happens, this is an important concept. Let me see how much I can explain this quickly. In the Vedic tradition, there is this conception of artha. Artha is value. And there could be many arthas. Our parents are our artha, our talent is our artha, our wealth is artha. But when any artha is made into a paramartha, paramartha means it is made into the supreme artha. When any artha is made into the paramartha, that leads to anartha. So anartha does not literally mean no value. Anartha, it can mean that also, but anartha means that when something of lesser value is made of supreme value. So for example, if money is made into paramartha, then that leads to the anartha of greed. Now the male-female attraction is a natural principle in this world. It is through that principle that the human race continues. But when that attraction becomes the sole basis for all decision making, when the artha becomes the paramartha, then that leads to anartha of lust, and the lust can be destructive. So similarly, ethical deliberation is very important. But when ethical deliberation becomes the supreme, that when I want to do the right thing, I pride myself on my ability to do the right thing. And when that becomes the supreme, then sometimes what happens is our adherence to ethics can become more important than even our devotion to God. So then that can lead to anartha. For Yudhishthira, the artha that has become the paramartha is his ethical rightness or righteousness, we could say. That he always wants to do the right thing, and that's important. But if that becomes the paramartha, then that can also take one away from Krishna. So ideally speaking, artha and or that morality, so we could say paramartha is ultimately bhakti and Krishna. It is bhakti that will take us to Krishna. Now, dharma is an artha. So, dharma should not be made more important than bhakti. But at the same time, that does not mean dharma is unimportant. Dharma is an artha. But dharma itself does not lead to Krishna. Dharma, when used in the service of Krishna, will, in a mood of bhakti, will take us to Krishna. So, have I confused or have I made things clearer? Okay. Thank you. So, any other comments or questions? Quick.
I have a question, but then just you're talking about confusion. Like judgment, you're saying that judgment should like good judgment, right? And then
Correct, yeah.
there you're saying dharma should never get in the way of bhakti, but then you need to have good judgment. And isn't judgment more dharma based than bhakti?
Of course. See, what I'm saying is two different things over here. Yeah, like I took that, I had the pendulum over here. That we don't neglect dharma for bhakti, nor do we neglect bhakti for dharma. Now, in extreme situations, if we have to choose between the two, we need to choose bhakti. Like the gopis, when Krishna called them for a woman to leave her family and go away to be with another man who is not a relative at night, that is not right. But because it was Krishna calling, the gopis did that. That is sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. So in extreme situations, dharma can be given up for bhakti. But Krishna takes care that actually they don't give up dharma. What Krishna does is that he arranges as if that the shadow gopis are there, like chaya gopis are there, and the family members think that the gopis didn't go only. So in that way, Krishna protects them. So I'm talking only of extreme situations. But in general, as devotees, we should have dharma and bhakti going together as much as possible. Okay.
So thank you. And then maybe not exactly as a question, but I'm really intrigued by this suffering graph of adversity, atrocity, and agony. I don't have like a direct question about it, but it's really interesting. Is it in your book? Like, do you explain that further in your book, or?
Well, not in this book. I have another book called Relishing Bhagavad Gita. In that I talk about it. See, Arjuna's question is, Arjuna is overwhelmed. Arjuna has suffered a lot previously, but never has he got overwhelmed like this. Even when his wife was being dishonored, he was angry, but he was not overwhelmed. Even when they lost the entire kingdom, he was not overwhelmed. Why? Because that's a sign of a responsible person. Bad things happen, that's bad. But when I have to do a bad thing, I would rather die than do something. That's what life puts us in. So agony is very, very difficult. See, sometimes in India, with respect to the Bhagavad Gita, they say Gita Sar, summary of Gita. Whatever happened was good. Whatever is happening is good. Whatever will happen is also good. They say this is summary of the Gita. But there is no verse in the Gita which actually says this directly. And more importantly, that is not the emphasis of the Gita. The Gita's emphasis is not what is happening to you. It is what you are doing. Arjuna's question is, what is the right thing for me to pruchhami tvam dharma sammuda cheta? What is the right thing for me to do? So in that sense, Arjuna's whole pain is because he feels that he is put in a situation where he has to do a bad thing and he doesn't want to. Okay.
Yeah, and then so in the text prior, it talks about purification and doing things that may be difficult for purification, where like atrocities are material destruction, which is not really like a silver lining, it's just like bad. And then so for the suffering, agony, and atrocities, like to fire someone, you don't want to fire them, but there's no other choice. You have to do something for the good of the people. And then when we're applying that for our lives, that sometimes we have to do something difficult for someone else to help them grow. And like it may be bhakti, we're loving that person, we want to like push that person, they make a mistake, we have to correct it and maybe give a little discipline. That's also bhakti, I guess. That's also.
Yeah, definitely. Will you be there for today evening's class?
Sorry?
Will you be there for today evening's class?
Totally.
So So we're talking more about this. When should suffering that happens be accepted as past karma, or when should be suffering be embraced, or we may do something which causes suffering to others. When do you do that? So yes, sometimes if it is going to lead to a greater good, then that is required and that can be seen as a part of bhakti. But then we have to do it as carefully as possible. Like sometimes the truth is bitter. We have to speak the bitter truth, because otherwise the person will stay in ignorance and illusion. But just because the truth is bitter does not mean that the truth has to be spoken bitterly. That time also we can try to speak as sensitively as possible. Okay. So sometimes pain may have to be caused to others, but we should not make causing pain into a virtue. Sometimes out of necessity, pain may have to be caused to others, but we should not make causing pain as a sign of our virtue. Okay. Thank you very much. Kanthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaura